Welcome to the Butterfly Tribe, where independent minds gather and sovereign voices are heard. This is a space where truth is not silenced, perspectives are valued, and every voice matters. Free from judgment, free from stigma, united through awareness. Welcome home, Butterfly. We've been expecting you.
Like, genocide is never a good thing. It doesn't matter whom does it to whom.
Yeah, I believe it's still the responsibility of each individual to nourish their souls.
And right now what we see is a massive influx of non-white people against the will of the people.
What I think is going to happen is that there's going to be a split. So there will be people who are going to go back to nature, back to community, back to sovereignty. But the other part of society is going to end up in this beast system. Sorry, I said white supremacy. I mean Jewish supremacy. Yeah. Welcome back, butterflies, to another episode of Tribe Radio, where we speak honestly about culture, family, identity, and the future we are leaving behind. Tonight's conversation is not an easy one. We are talking about the deep anxiety many people feel when they look at the world around them. Declining birth rates, broken families, mass immigration, cultural displacement, confusion between men and women, and the growing sense that ordinary people are being managed by systems they did not create and cannot control. These are emotional subjects, and because they are emotional, they are often either censored, mocked, or pushed into extremes. But avoiding the conversation does not make the fear disappear. This is why Ruben and I created the realm of reason in which we can have this dialogue, so we can connect with you and inspire people to take back control themselves. So tonight we want to ask, what does it mean to protect a people, a culture, and a future without falling into hatred? What does it mean to raise strong sons and daughters in a world that often seems designed to weaken them? And how do we recognize systems of control without losing our humanity? Ruben, brother, thank you for being here once again.
Welcome.
And let's have this dialogue.
Yeah, let's go.
The stage is yours.
Yeah, there was a lot said in your intro. So what stuck with me mainly to start about is like how to stand up for your people and for yourself and for your family and your community and all these layers of the self without falling in hatred. And in the way I'm saying it, actually the answer is already suggested. First of all, to realize that it's layers of oneself, which brings us back to something we mentioned before, to realize the unity within. That is really the key, ultimately, to this better world, to back to reality, back home to paradise. And one metaphor that I gave before in the podcast, before we were really working together, at my place in the little shed in the garden, is that we are part of the world tree, which as an individual we are part of that, and as well we are the world tree itself. We are that oneness inside. So there's a tree trunk that is humanity, and a stream of water, of liquid that flows through that, like a stream of life that nourishes all the branches and all the tiny little twigs that the leaves are attached to. So we can see this as the tree of life, right? The world tree. And each branch is a race or a nation or a people with an ethnic group, another branch that branches out. And the little leaves on the tree are we as individuals. And when we realize that little twig, which can be seen as the bridge, like the rainbow bridge as our ancestors called it, that very realization of vertical consciousness of the chakra system, that we are part of the one and we really live from that unity consciousness, then we realize that twig to the tree. We're not separate entities anymore. We're part of a whole, part of a natural whole, that living system. So of course, these leaves fall, we die physically, and we're reborn, or a next generation of leaves comes to carry the souls, next generation of bodies, of this diversity of the tree that makes the whole tree more beautiful. So we have to see it like that. We cannot measure by two means. Right now, there's a lot going on. When I noticed this from a very young age. When I was 12, and in class they asked me like, so what political party would you vote for? You know, and I wasn't. I don't know. Politics. I've never believed in politics. Like also after that in my life, it's like nonsense. That whole thing of like a majority overruling a minority instead of having a circle where we all have a voice, and we all count, and we just do the best thing for the community, for everyone. And I said like the one that one that had the slogan like our own people first. And I was like labeled a racist, and I was attacked, and all this stuff happened to me, and I was like, whoa, where does this stuff even come from? Like some of my friends are black. Like I don't even know what racism is. You know, it's nonsense. It's bullshit. There's no hatred there. But if you're not for your own people locally in that own ecosystem, taking care of them, what are you doing? You know, like, because you can't take care of the whole world. There's no jurisdiction, you know, somewhere else. So if you don't take care of the people that live in that specific ecosystem in that specific region, what are you doing? So whilst they were judging me as a little white boy, basically, these same people were advocating against whites being in South Africa, for example. So they were measuring by two means. They were saying like, okay, black people should have a black nation, but white people cannot have a white nation. So that's hatred. That's racism. That's wrong. Measuring by two means. So whatever we want for ourselves and whatever we need to live the life we want to live is also what we should want for others. That's the very simple rule of honor, you know, of honesty, of reality, and the whole idea.
That's the hypocrisy of the system, right? Of the educational system, of every sort of system, blaming us for being white, and saying out loud what we observe within society.
Yeah, well, there's a whole story attached to that, of course, like about slavery and about colonialism and about the Second World War, and when you dive deeper into those topics, which I don't advocate for that we do in this podcast, but if you dive deeper into because it takes a lot of space and time, and we're talking to a bit of a more conscious audience, I imagine. Yeah. So you know, that information is spreading now already. So that genie is out of the bottle, and that truth will come to the light. That basically all those three topics have been lied about, but on top of that, it has been normalized to project some kind of image of the past, of like who white people were and what we supposedly did in the world, to project that on white people now that have fuck all to do with that, you know, and that has been completely normalized. Like that's not the way to. That's like us saying like, oh, some black guy raped our children, so like 3 generations or 10 generations from now, we're invading their nations and we're like killing them, and because of what they're doing to us right now. I don't think that's the way to go.
Yeah, so it's karma.
Yeah, but then it's always karma, you know. Then the Native Americans in America being exterminated by that system is also karma. Then this never-ending cycle where we don't learn from previous mistakes, you know. So remove the identification from the story and just see it as blue people and purple people, you know, if that helps, you know, and see like, oh, one did something to the other. So the thing that we don't agree with is the principles being violated. Like genocide is never a good thing. It doesn't matter whom does it to whom. It's just something we disagree with. So a genocide in the past by a certain people on another people would not justify a genocide right now on those people who were the perpetrators, you know. It's about principles.
Just say who it is, Israel. Like,
Yeah, well, even that's very difficult to pinpoint, because what is Israel and who rules Israel, and and are the Israeli people aware of what's happening? Because I
well,
don't
I
think
had
they
an
are.
interview not so long ago with Angela. We had some very
Mm.
interesting conversations. You can watch it on our YouTube channel, The Butterfly Tribe. Go ahead. Also, if you want to watch Europa: The Last Battle, the full series is on our website, thebutterflytribe.ai. You can create a free account, and then you can watch the documentary, and you will see that history is not really repeating. We were lied about our history, and yeah, I just wanted to put that there. Let's
Yeah, sure.
continue the conversation.
It's a nice light documentary to start with.
Yeah, yeah,
Europa: The Last
foundation.
Battle.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I saw it though, like 10 years ago already or something. It was pretty hardcore to talk about that stuff back then because
Yeah,
everyone was still completely in denial.
yeah. I also met Ken O'Keefe not so long ago. Yeah, I traveled with him for 1 month. I learned a lot from him. I hope he also learned from me. Yeah.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
I've seen very little. I've seen things from him like already, I think, 10 years ago as well, or something like that. And back then, he was one of the only people that I at least was exposed to that verbalized things in a very straightforward way.
Exactly.
Even though I also could sense a certain like undigested emotions, but that's all fine, of course, everyone, and understandable too, actually. Um, yeah. So
Yeah,
I
and
have I
sometimes it's
have an
needed.
image of who Ken O'Keefe is, but of course the image is never who a person really is.
Yeah,
So yeah.
he's definitely a pioneer and on this topic, and I believe he doesn't get enough credit for all the years of work he has done. You know, he went to Palestine even while being shot at, making all these documentaries. You know, it's crazy. Like he's a legend for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but let's talk about white genocide then. What do we mean by that, Ruben? You know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, for me, there are certain needs that the people has. Like one of those branches of the tree that I was describing needs its flow of nutrients and needs its separate branch, its space in order to develop. Like when you see us being white guys, for example, individuals, the individual white person has two white parents, four grandparents, eight great grandparents, 16 great great grandparents, right? So there's about 16 people of a certain race needed to create one in our time now. So there's a certain pool, a certain like breeding ground, so to say, for each ethnicity and race that and ethnicities are ultimately just kind of subdivisions of races that form like border regions with other races, and it's all a natural kind of situation of ecosystems that have developed over thousands and thousands of years. And
Mhm.
right now, what we see is a massive influx of non-white people against the will of the people of the nations that were formerly white. In the time of my grandparents, they were 100% white, these nations, when they were born, like Europe in general. And this is like not this is not a natural development. This is a development that is pushed top down, and the climate has been created for it by um, mental and physical poisoning and creating circumstances in which it is very hard for white people to reproduce and raise their children, because it's just very expensive, first of all, and it's not very safe. And there is like a mental kind of an idea installed that there's overpopulation and we need to
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
something about it because we're a plague on the earth and white people are evil and they target our children from a young age by installing this kind of white guilt, as it's called. And when we think there's something wrong with us, and now they will take it further. There, you can already see the signs of this, that they're trying to tell us that everyone was black before, also in Europe, and all. This is the kind of program they're trying to install. Like the Cheddar Man was one of these hoaxes about like the first Brit being a black guy, basically, and then that was exposed because it was one of those leftists who completely made that up in order to basically take away the right to exist of white people. It's the same as what they're doing in Palestine, like the Jews, those Zionist Jews. They say we were there before them. That's why they don't matter now. Like this kind of like right to be there. They base that upon them having been there before. So that's exactly what they're trying to erase completely from white people, and they're trying to make it seem like we are some kind of mutation where something went wrong. Therefore, we became this plague. They link us to the modern world. That's why they say the Western world, which is what I think we should be heavily against. Like many people copy this without thinking what they're actually copying. To call this toxic, polluting, financial prison, to call that the Western world, and act as if technological progress is progress, instead of us reproducing healthy, strong bodies which need natural nutrition, good soil, sports and games, and our own identity and culture, which is exactly what's under attack. All that stuff that we truly need. Yeah, then we're on the wrong track. We're not those modern people. We're not the Western world. We are actually Germanics, and we go back many of thousands of years. We're like a branch of Aryans, which the Slavics and the Anglo-Saxons are other big branches. And there's more words you can hang on that, but we're a tribal people that was rooted in nature, that have been hijacked and enslaved by this system, which is not run by people that want to keep us, clearly. That's why we see this mass immigration, and also the wars are part of that. Right? Soviet communism, which came from the Bolshevik Revolution, which was 600 guys, little hat guys from New York, right, that came to Russia because the Tsar was opposing the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve, as we all know, is producing money, value out of nothing. They got rid of the gold standard. That's over time they did these things, but they were printing the money. And the Tsar of Russia, the Emperor of Russia, spoke out against that. And that's one of the reasons why they went against them, against that system, because they wanted to hijack it. So what communism is a spell that's cast through socialism, Marxism, to Levi Mordechai Marx, like Karl Marx. It sold better amongst Germans when he adopted the German name, but it's all fake. It's all dark magicians installing spells. And what the spell does, it sets up the hands, the working class people, against the intellect, against the head, right? It rips the heart out by making people feel jealous of those people who have more, the haves and the have-nots. It kind of like divides them further. So this revolution is created, hatred is spewed, jealousy is nourished, is like fed into. And then they kill the elites, but those elites are actually the only people of that nation that understand how to run a nation. So they kill the
protecting actually and providing to the people, yeah.
They were protecting and providing, even though I do see that there was an opening. They became too arrogant. They were too detached from the normal people. So there was an opening, there was some kind of arrogance of the nobility of Europe already, like in all other nations across the world, I imagine. Like it's the ego, it's this play that we're going through. But then they have these hands cut off the head, rip out the heart, cut off the hand, and they replace it with this banking system and with this whole mega corporations, which is in a way the same. In communism, it was contained within the borders, but global capitalism with multinational companies is the same thing, but just without the borders of a nation. So capitalism and communism are two sides of the same coin. They both have their foundation in that money system. And those big corporations have power over local small communities. And the only difference between like Soviet Russia or the USSR is more accurate, the Soviet Union, and globalism is that globalism has no borders anymore. That's the only difference, because the mega corporations that the Soviets had were still within their borders, and this thing is like borderless, and it's exterminating the middle class basically, and making everyone into slave laborers, and now into robots with the AI and all that. That's where I want to go next. But it's because they want to control. Yeah. They want to control, and robots are predictable.
Yeah, and as you know or may not know, the plan is to roll out the CBDC, the central bank digital currency, connect that to a digital ID, where you will have how do you call it, universal salary or something like this,
universal credit system, right?
Yeah, no, but that people are paid for just being there,
because
robots are universal income, because robots are gonna take over. That's clear as day. Elon Musk talks about it. Jeff Bezos and all these other, Mark Zuckerberg, all these Jews. Little detail. So this means people are going to lose their jobs because robots are going to take the job. And with this universal income, it sounds like it's awesome, but what they can also do is, if you do not comply with the rules of the system, this AI-controlled system, then you can be blocked out of that universal income, and then you don't have an income anymore. So these are some of the things we can see coming, and this is why I'm building an app to make sure that we still are connected with real human beings when the time comes, in which we can help each other with real world things, resources like land or services and stuff like that. Because we have to go back to Mother Nature for sure. What are your thoughts about that? Like, what will be the solution when the time comes?
The deep state, as we call it, right? This is this kind of like organism of anti-life that creates this chrysalis cocoon that we're in, this pressure on us, is always less deep than the deeper state of being. And this is very important to understand in order to stay faithful, because in essence we are one, and that includes those people who totally lost that connection and who are for many generations focused on being a special group of people that has more rights than others, and therefore justifies horrible behavior in their striving for total world domination.
Well, they're already there. They're already there.
No, I don't think so. They're there on the physical level, but that's only because people in general still believe in a certain image of wealth and success and progress. And that image of wealth, success and progress is all rooted in money and technology. So if they see that there's a technological progress and that the economy is growing, they think that there is an actual benefit. And this is mainly because they are lying to us about the life expectancy being higher than ever, which is not in the West. People are dying young, for sure.
Yeah.
much younger than our grandparents were, because it's very simple with all animals in the zoo. It's the same thing. If you don't give them the food and the lifestyle that their vessel needs in order to be optimized in their health and strength and joy for life, zest for life, then they get sick and they die younger. And it's exactly the same with humans. So the nihilism and the depression and the lack of purpose that people sense, and the horrible GMO food and seed oils and additives to the food, and the poison that they spray on the land, which, by the way, were the chemical weapons from the First and the Second World War that were left over, that they decided to throw on our food. So how can that ever be a good intention, to make that shift, to normalize poisoning our food with something that has actually been designed to kill us, and then just make it a small dose so it kills us slowly, so the boiling frog syndrome is happening, so we don't revolt against this. So because people don't know this shit, and that's why it's important to talk about the shadow side of things, they still don't recognize the problem, and therefore they're still mindlessly going along with that machine of destruction. But people are starting to see this in their masses, and we're part of that movement. And then the fuel is pulled out of that machine. Because personally, I do not think that we're going to a world where robots rule and where digital credit systems rule. And I think the whole thing is just going to collapse. And that's one big mirage that was given to our Western elites in order to promise them some kind of power and a position of, neo nobility, like in this technocracy, to be like the ones that are like an oligarchy, like ruling the whole thing. It's not going to happen, because there is no life expectancy in that system, because we cannot live in this world full of these EMFs, this toxicity. So people, it's a dead end. They're going to die. Everyone who's in that system is going to die.
Yeah, I don't want to.
Within one generation, I think.
Yeah, I don't want to sound pessimistic. I hope you are right, brother. But I'm also realistic. I believe that we, our generation, and our daughters and sons, are going to see a world operated with robots and AI. It is exploding, and it's going very, very rapidly. I do a lot of research on this, so I know what I talk about. And the problem is going to be the fact that people will rather want to communicate with AI bots, AI companionship, than with human beings. We already see that the younger generation, they find it difficult to think for themselves. They use AI for everything. So they don't develop their frontal cortex and the rest of the brain, nor intuition, And I think it's our role as the generation. I'm a millennial. I think you are Gen Z, right?
I think so.
Or Gen X. I don't know what it was. I think
don't know
it's
what all these names are, whatever.
Yeah, well, whatever.
I'm a guy that grew up without a mobile phone till I was like 14 or 15 or something.
That's what I tried to say. So we have seen the internet being born. So we've also experienced how it is without. But I think it's slightly naive to believe that this is not going to happen. What I think is going to happen is that there's going to be a split in society. So there will be people, the butterfly tribe, for example, who are going to go back to nature, back to community, back to sovereignty, which actually what is happening in the world is a blessing because this inspires us to do so. But the other part of society is going to end up in this beast system where they're actually soulless humps of meat in the future because they don't have any intuition anymore, any connection with themselves. AI will do everything for them, and there's also no reason to reproduce anymore. because robots are there. I think it's going to be a very interesting time to live in. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but this is what I'm saying. Exactly the same thing, in my own way. But the real naivety, the way I see it, or the unrealistic aspect, is to think that you can create a civilization that is durable, that is not aligned to nature, to these natural principles that keep the body healthy. Because they're building cyborgs, and they're building these robots, and they're building this whole, chipped people that are connected to the web, and like,
Cloud.
but
Yeah.
what that creates, these EMFs and all the things that go along with that externalized artificial authority that they create for themselves. They're building their own god, right, in the form of AI, with
Yeah.
the robot bodies, and then they want to become part of that. That's an illusion. That is like a mirage that is ending very quickly once that is like pushed, and they will die. That's what I'm saying. There is no support from source. There is no support from actual life, from that tree of life that I was describing. And this is what we're being shown. And yes, there will be a divide, and it's already happening. This is already happening. This is actually the year that is like massively accelerating. This divide between the people who will strive to go back to the natural order, which does not mean going back to some kind of like caveman living, which is total nonsense anyway, because civilizations before were much more advanced than what we have now. Not in a technological way per se, but probably also, but at least in being aligned to an energy that actually nourishes life. And to build like strong, healthy bodies, strong, healthy offspring that understands what this eternal culture of stories and traditions that we are living is about, to master our own vessel. I mean, telepathy is a real thing. There's people teaching this, how to telepathically communicate with animals and with each other, and this is already happening. There's children learning to see without using their eyes. They can see with their hands. Like, all these things are real. So
And when you're in a
are,
relationship with a woman, this happens very often as well. After a couple of weeks of the connection, you start finishing their phrases and stuff like that. Oh, I was
yeah,
thinking about you at that moment. Oh, I was also thinking about you at that moment. So we all already do it unconsciously.
yeah, and like you say, all this artificial input and the dependence on AI and on anything for that matter, it starts already with a calculator, like. Like
Yeah.
mathematics is a universal language. Numbers are a language, and we find patterns with this language that are, as easy as possibly communicated, because it's the simplest language that we have. And if you have a sum, an equation that you need to solve, you need steps of reasoning to get to the answer. And before, that was done with the brain itself and on paper, but every step was done by the person himself or herself. Then came a calculator, which is basically us being trained to outsource the thinking to this thing and trust the answer. So it's us listening to machines already, it's us listening to external authority already, which defies the purpose of what a school should be. A school should be about becoming independent, becoming intelligent, developing this avatar, developing what we are. And we're not even, in our society, the norm, probably we don't even develop for 1% of what we can do and what we can achieve and what we can actually be. And first of all, this life is lived through this vessel, no matter what kind of world we create, with robots and this and that, the times we move through. So
But
it's just a dead
travel?
end.
What about
Sorry?
astral travel?
I never did it, not consciously, but I there's people that do remote viewing and these kind of things, and it seems to be real. I mean, they see things. The military used this kind of stuff before, so I don't think the military is the kind of institution that does these things if there's not some kind of truth to it. So that as well. But the whole thing, like, what we actually are is God on earth, embodied in humanity and in life in general. And when the birds sing, the grass grows faster. Yeah? When crickets make their music, our nervous system calms down. The whole thing is so interconnected that the real wealth and the real riches is in the ecosystem developing, and this will never change. So the only thing that happens is with this mirage of this striving for control and this creating of this control system, which ultimately results in all these robots, behind that is the lack of self-realization, a lack of this unity, realizing the unity that we are, and therefore they strive to control the other that is not separate from them, but they think it's separate from them, and that illusion will be shattered, like at some point. So there is no future to that system. So we shouldn't fear it. We should get out of it, form communities, become independent of it. You know, definitely we should make an effort to do that, more and more so. But it will end. It will end, and I think it will end within 10 years. Also because the complexity that is needed to actually build these robots and maintain that system with all the mainframes that it's connected to, all the AI, the energy that needs, that is such an enormously complex system. And when you do what the West did, like import all these people who basically were born in places where they still kill their own chickens every day to eat, you know, and that kind of thing, like they will not carry that. And once they start like rioting and it starts going, it takes like a day, and all the cameras and all this complex shit that was built is all burned down. It's all destroyed. The only place I see like moving along with that, till like, you know, some time in the future, the only places maybe are China and maybe Russia, you know, maybe India.
Yeah, well,
Because
China, in
yeah,
China
more
they've
stable.
already implemented it all, and so
Yeah,
that's
on
the
a certain
perfect
scale,
test
yeah.
ground, and that's the perfect test ground. And now they want that model in the Western society. We see this in the Netherlands. There is a camera on every corner, and if you watch movies, you also see how they use this technology. Like they have AI that can see and track your iris, your eye, on every camera on the entire world. So even like cameras in your phone, cameras on the Tesla car that you might just walk by, you know, that's the kind of stuff secret agencies use, intelligence agencies.
Yeah,
So
it's
this
all
is,
there already. This computer that I'm speaking to now, and it's all
yeah,
already
yeah,
happening. You know, I know,
yeah.
but
So
it has an expiry date. That's what I'm saying.
I
And
hope you're right, brother. I hope you're right.
it
Time
can
will
only
tell.
be like that. Yeah, yeah,
Time
it
will
can
tell.
only be like that. But we have to go through a certain period of time that is not um, that's not so easy with that. You know.
Yeah, but not by waiting. People have to stand up. People have to do instead of, you know, only talking. They have to take action,
Yeah.
and that's why we have these conversations to inspire people to do the same, because we have started doing this in our lives. Um, but yeah, maybe I hope that people will get a sense of hope and vision and purpose by following these conversations, because what we see now in society is that people, especially on the let's say the awakened side, there's also a lot of despair. You know, people don't have a lot of hope anymore. Also because a majority of the people are still asleep. But perhaps, you know, it really has to explode. We have to have a chaos
I
for
think it
people
will. Yeah.
really to wake up, right? So
Yeah, I think it will. It's pain, man. People learn
yeah,
through pain mostly. Like it's like we like children. We learn by making mistakes. And this is like yeah, how you burn yourself, right? When you learn what fire is, and then you're like, ooh, that shit is hot, man. I better not touch this wood burner or the flame, or like that's how people learn. And now we're playing God. Well, we are gods,
We
but we're
are
not
gods. Yeah.
we're not the God. There is an all-encompassing oneness, a consciousness that is beyond me as an individual and beyond us as a group, and that is eternal and has a certain order in this creation. And the very fact that we create these things they're not aligned to the circle of life, all these technologies and all the energy that it takes, and all this computer that I'm in front of now, it's toxic to my system in reality, the radiation that comes off of it. So it's not aligned to that circle. It's leeching power from us, actually, instead of giving us power. And that's a lesson that we're learning, and it's a massive lesson, because we have the fire, right? We are the ones that are the masters of creation, and we need to learn to be responsible with this fire. And for that, we need to realize that we need to raise the next generation in order to realize the oneness. We need trajectories like cultures of shared stories and traditions that raise the next generation in order to know who they are. And that's when we become responsible. And now there's a group of basically big children, like all these tech nerds who have been bullied when they were young, and who hate humanity and hate themselves, and think that they need to prove to the world how big they are by creating all these things and having control over others, because they're so scared of others that they can't live in a free world, because they don't trust themselves to be strong enough,
Yeah, perhaps
they're
but
not.
also by their own upbringing. But the technological revolution is not all bad. Look what we are doing right now. I mean, the video editing, people don't see that, of course, behind the scenes, all the work that I have in editing all these videos. But I also use AI tools to make it less difficult and more efficient. Same goes with creating ideas and putting them out there. You can use ChatGPT to write scripts, etc. So what normally would take maybe 3 days to write a script, now you can do in 10 minutes, right? So it is like a gun, and it depends on in which hand the gun is. Is it in an evil guy's hand, or is it in a hero's guy's hands? So it's all a balance. There's no black and white. There's not even gray, actually, I believe.
Yeah, the word.
Yeah.
No, I also don't believe in gray. No,
Yeah.
it goes it's either the upward spiral, part of the positive stimulation, or it's part of the pain pushing, the
Yeah.
other one. And the way I see this time in that sense is that through these technologies we spread knowledge and inspiration, and a shitload of clutter people spread as well, and that's kind of the enemy, the clutter. But it requires each and every individual to take control of their own attention. What do you allow in? So there needs to be a filter. Does this really serve me? Is this giving me knowledge or inspiration, or is it part of, the clutter? And even knowledge and inspiration can be clutter, because if it's not aligned to your personal passion and your personal role and something you're actually going to do something with, it's very easy to overstimulate yourself with the amount of information that is available today. Also quality information, if you know where to find it. So that is one side. So on the side of the creator, it also requires us to take responsibility of what we are creating. Are we providing certain knowledge that people can do something with? Are we enriching their perception of reality in a way that gives them more clarity? Or are we joining again the side of all the clutter, which is near endless, or is endless actually, as an individual, because you can never see everything. And
Plus, is it our responsibility to do so, brother?
absolutely, yeah,
Of
absolutely.
course, we are creators. You know, we want to innovate. We want to. We came here on this world to create, not to consume, or at least not as much as most people do. But yeah, I believe it's still the responsibility of each individual to nourish their souls, because if they don't, then the soul will just disappear. That's what I believe. You know, and that's where Satan actually consumes the soul, or the beast, the system, whatever you want to call it. It's the spark. You know, that's what the Jews also believe in, the spark. And if you do not, your spark is your soul. And if you do not nourish the soul, then it doesn't belong to you anymore. So it's a responsibility to be the soul.
Yeah, yeah. I think I see
Right?
that. I see that as when we are distracted and we're not fulfilling our soul mission, right? Which is to be us, to be completely authentic,
Yeah.
and bring what we have to bring to this world from the heart, like open, and develop ourselves by being open. And then you run into things, you try things, you learn by mistakes, and at a certain point in your life you know who you are, you know what you're bringing. Like, I know that I'm bringing a certain vision to this world, and I'm bringing clarity by speaking. So that's a mission, a soul mission. So if I then start overeating, using drugs, watching porn, whatever, like waste my time like that and get caught in that moment, Satan would, or Satan, like evil is the reverse of live, right? The word evil, when you spell it out, it's like live in reverse. It's like when you don't live, but when you're consuming and being like hypnotized, then you're put on pause. So in that moment of time, during that time, you are basically possessed.
Oh yes.
That's how it is. And
Yeah.
that's how simple it is also. So it's not
Same
this
goes
like
with
entity that
scrolling.
enters you. It's not
Yeah.
an entity that enters you, it's ideas. Demons are ideas.
You're
And they
allowing.
take possession of people by
Yeah.
believing them, by allowing them, by choosing them over other stuff, over your own innate drive, your own path. And that's the only thing that can threaten us in that sense. And it becomes increasingly difficult or challenging in a world where they take away beauty and inspiration, which is why they destroy all these beautiful old buildings in Europe, for example. And in America, apparently, they also did so. Like, there were lots of like massive, beautiful buildings from our ancestors, and they destroyed them. They destroyed like 99% of it in Europe, something crazy
Yeah.
like that. Also,
Because
the,
it
the
destroys.
bombing of Germany, and the whole thing. Like, it's a lot of it is about destroying the inspiration of that the ancestors gave us. Because when you're in a beautiful environment that is geometrically harmonized, that is harmonized in the materials, that has a certain divine and endless meaning to it, that it communicates to us and was made in that intention, that frequency makes it much easier for us to be present, because it's pleasant to be present. And when we have this ugly world, this metropolis, of like all these modern buildings and all this like neon lights and LED lights, and yeah, that kind of stuff, some people find it beautiful. I get it to a certain extent. I find it really ugly
I prefer
personally.
this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, if you're in like an ancient wood and the ancient jungle or whatever, yeah, your little bonsai tree.
Yeah.
That's cute.
My little
Like,
baby.
you hear the animals, right? The frequency comes in. Like when I was in Brazil in the jungle and yeah, drinking ayahuasca. This is something that I did quite a bit,
You
because
hit
it's all me, it's all us, it's all ourselves. So just to open up to yourself. I mean, what are you afraid of? Some kind of external entity? Well, then you don't know God, because God is within. So, and nature is His creation. So if you're afraid of a mushroom or something, then you're not faithful. So I go for this exploration of
Yeah.
this shadow inside, and then I realized, like, I'm not just in the jungle. The jungle is in me. It's one thing that it's so comforting. I find it so comforting to hear all these animals and these massive trees and to be in that space where you're connected to your nature, and animals respond on that. They can feel that you're harmonized.
Oh,
But they won't
definitely.
just attack a conscious human. This is nonsense.
I always
It doesn't
attract
happen.
butterflies everywhere I go. It's crazy. Yeah. Yeah. We have a
Yeah.
lot of monkeys here as well. That's really cool. Yeah. And
Yeah, I've never
some
been to
of the
Kuala
people,
Lumpur, so
some of the locals said, Robin, don't touch the monkeys because you can get monkeypox. So
well, I
I
know they can
laughed and I
carry
said,
rabies
well,
sometimes.
what?
They can carry rabies sometimes, and then they act like out of line, of course. So there are, especially with cities, then they're
Okay.
out of balance. They're used to get food from people. They start to act,
Yeah.
in a way that is not necessarily balanced to nature either.
Well,
This, of course, can happen.
I
Yeah,
don't kiss them on the mouth. So I think
that helps.
I'll stay healthy.
That helps.
Yeah. Great. Um, let's let's maybe get back a little bit to our young parents that are watching this dialogue. What do you have to say to them? Because it's pretty difficult nowadays to be a man or a woman with a child. You should know.
Yeah, for sure I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is challenging for sure. We're going through very special times in which we are asked to move within, right, and find first of all the oneness that I keep talking about, and then to realize ourselves as natural beings which have needs, and our universal morality is centered around those needs, those actual needs, like to have healthy food, to have a shared community in which we raise the children, because it does take a village to raise a child. It's an illusion that the nuclear family is the foundation in which we can raise children, because then we're always dependent on this system. And if the system doesn't provide an environment in which we can allow those children to run free and have experience with other children and discover their boundaries in the play with these other children, which they are brutal with each other sometimes, but there needs to be a community that protects that space. So we need to, one way or another, gather the people that are open-minded around us and completely forget about the others that are still trapped in that matrix system. Let them go, because they will only pull you down. There's no more time for this nonsense. They will follow later. They will be inspired by whatever you create with the people that are open-minded. They are your real friends anyway. Doesn't matter how long you know them.
So you
Doesn't
think
matter who they are.
going into the wild with your family? That's what you're
Well,
saying?
preferably, if you can find a place that is like natural and you can build your eco community there with the circle at the center, because 95% of these communities fail on not having a shared higher purpose,
Yeah.
a vision, which should be about raising the future, which should be about raising the next generation of children, and universal law and the order of nature and the path of initiation into this adulthood, which requires healthy, honest relationships, because honesty builds trust, and all relationships are based on trust ultimately. So
Yeah, and what you
that's
often see is that they turn into cults, these communities. They start using drugs, or they start fucking with one another. So no monogamy, and it becomes a toxic environment. Um, I
yeah,
think I believe to know what you actually mean, because I mean, do you think it's how do you say it? Is it realistic to now say, let's go fucking live in a tent, with your family? That's not what people
well, it
want.
depends on where you are and who you are and all of that, of course. I mean, in some regions in the world, you can live in a yurt, for example. You can live in a tent, or if it's allowed to buy
Yeah, but not
a piece of
everyone wants
land,
that,
or
nor
you're
nor
allowed on
can.
someone else's land and whatever, then you can do it like that.
Yeah.
But of course, there's a massive difference depending on where you are in the world. So you
Yeah.
need to kind of like either leave where you are if it doesn't give the possibilities that are there for you to raise those children in the way that they need in order to become self-realized human beings that live in harmony with the world and that have strong, healthy bodies. You know, like that is ultimately priority number one. So if the environment becomes too toxic or too unsafe, or like I think is the case in many places in the West right now, then that's not the place. You know, like cities, Western cities are not the place the way I see it. So
Yeah.
that's a fact, but they are the place to unite, to find the people. You know, if you go to one of the protests, for example, or some kind of positive gathering about eco communities, I don't know, they happen, these kind of things. Then you go there and you will meet people. And what I'm saying is, if you meet someone and you feel the resonance, and you feel like, yeah, this is my kind of person, then don't think that that is less valuable than someone you've known for 20 years, maybe your brother or whomever, who keeps fucking with you, you know, who keeps like saying bullshit, who keeps like being the Matrix agent in the story, you know, like going against you, like keeps being possessed by these ideas. Like, no, just drop them all. Stick to your, like, the birthdays and these kind of things. Congratulate them. Don't be hateful. Don't be spiteful. But don't waste your life trying to convince people that are not willing to open their minds, that need basically more pain before they will open. Or they need some kind of external authority to tell them to change, because that's how these people function. They follow external authority. So if you're not some kind of expert that has been recognized by the system, they will never listen to you. So focus on the people that are open, create some form of community. If you can realize it, realize a place where you can really live together and raise those kids in a safe environment. And then we'll see, you know, because I see that as the arc through these times. I mean, earlier you said something about being naive, but I'm actually not at all. I think like a massive portion of this world is not going to survive the coming 10 years. That's what I think. And I don't know this, and I hope I'm wrong, but all indications are that that will happen, you know, like it's and it's not like one massive event per se. It's a build up of all these different things, like the toxicity of the environment, the war in Ukraine, for example. What do you think that effect is? Like 2.5 million white guys gone. That's people that will never have families, most of them.
Yeah.
You know, that has a massive effect in one generation. It means like those families don't exist. Those children will never be born. So there's the changes are already happening constantly. And we tend to wait for some kind of like massive apocalyptic event, but we're already in it. And there's an ending of the old, and there's a beginning of the new. And I say, like, let's join the new and let these polarizing energies cancel each other out. And then from there, you know, when we brought things back to some kind of sanity and civilized way of living together in small groups, we can reconnect to each other. We can build something new. We can build something beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah, the era of the butterfly has begun, brother, and we are part of the new. We are the new. I think this is a beautiful ending of this episode. Very valuable conversation. Butterflies, if you enjoyed this conversation, please let us know in the comments. Consider to subscribe, because that's how we grow the community. And if you want to join us on the platform and see all the episodes, because sometimes episodes get censored, especially when we talk about white supremacy and sorry, I said white supremacy, I mean Jewish supremacy. They get censored, so you can watch them on our platform, thebutterflytribe.ai. Thank you for being here. And see you in the next transformation.
Wait. Can I add something still?
Sure.
Just because I think it's nice. You made a nice link from these communities to the butterfly. And how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, right? Like you've got these cells in the caterpillar that start being different. They call that imaginal
Waking up.
cells.
Yeah.
They already have the image of the butterfly, so they don't match with the old system. And they're all isolated and lonely and they feel like shit and, that kind of thing. But they have a strong vision. They're strong. They're stronger than the caterpillar. Then they start to lump together into these imaginal discs, which are communities, which are these groups that I'm speaking about of the like-minded people coming together, which is happening now in our time. Right now, today, many of these people come together. And the caterpillar becomes so uncomfortable because this stuff is going on within him that he builds this chrysalis, right? And the caterpillar itself turns to chaos. It turns to this like
Soup. Yeah.
And these imaginal discs start using whatever they can use from that to build the butterfly until the butterfly is ready and feels like, ooh, this is limiting. I'm getting out of this cocoon. And that's this birth. And that requires a certain push in which the wings fill up. So that's the process of like, before you really develop your wings in our symbology, I would say, but they have to fill up because they crawl out of the hole. If you help them by making the hole bigger, those wings don't fill up properly with blood and the butterfly is cannot fly, so you can't help them. They have to crawl out themselves. And this is happening to all peoples of the earth, individuals and peoples. They're going through this process, so it won't be like this collective movement that comes from a top-down kind of vision that we spread, but it comes from within people's own DNA, and they will resist this globalism, this entity from everywhere in the world at the same time, and this is unstoppable. This is our rebirth, the rebirth of paradise. This is what is happening. It's unstoppable.
Thank you, brother.
Welcome.
Let's go, butterflies. See you in the next one.